All right, and welcome into another duly noted podcast. Of course, brought to you, presented by Titan MRI from the Shakow and Mercandane Luxury Studios. That's what we're calling them, the Luxury Studios. And we appreciate Shakow and Mercandane. You may have seen Steve Mercandane on the Friday show. That was a lot of fun, and we had a great time with that. In fact, setting up the stuff he brought me from McKeithen Stadium up in my room right now. Well, not right now, but later on today. So, look, we'll be honest with you. We're taping this show way in advance because Evan is going on vacation. I am going on vacation. We're allowed to go on vacation, but we don't want to leave you guys without a show. So our Monday show today, we won't be talking about the College World Series, which is actually being played tonight because there's no point in talking about it. Although I will tell you this, and I'll talk about this with Jeff Cardozo on the tailgate today, Wednesday, but not Monday. After that one play where the guy looked like he fouled it off, but they called him out, and I went back and timed how long it took from the time the play happened to when they finally started, they called ready to go to play for the next pitch. 5 minutes and 32 seconds. Now, that tells you that they've got to solve that problem. That's not the umpire's fault. That's the way they want to do it, but that's not the right way to do it, especially when you've already had a 2-hour rain delay. I mean, it's just not right. So anyway, but you know, we would talk about who won that, but we'll get to it later on Monday. For a Monday show, obviously, we're not going to be talking about things that happened over the weekend either. So. But, you know, we just want to make sure you had a show. We've got a couple of great guests for you today. Bruce Feldman, who writes for The Athletic, and also you see him on Fox Sports all the time, college football, knows college football so well. Wrote one of my favorite books called Meat Market. It was about Ed Ogeron recruiting at Ole Miss. And I highly recommend that book. You get some insight into the craziness of Ed Ogeron. You kind of come away from that kind of liking Ed Ogeron, and now everybody's kind of on the other side. You know, now he's got a Title IX case against him, and we'll get to something about that a little bit later because there'll be a lot of football, and there's going to be tons of football as we go forward here on the show because we're gonna keep going all summer, and I think there may be one show we're not going to be able to do because I'll be in Los Angeles, but other than that, we're going to keep going all summer. Don't forget, you can watch us on Facebook and YouTube, and you can listen to us whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, CastBox, 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. So I had to be really creative with some of the things we do here on the show. I think I have a pretty good this, that, and the other. We will get the Adams Ribco to go Mount Rushmore going with soccer today. Leonardo's Millhopper's Quick Pick. So got a different thing we're going to do there. And, of course, 3 things presented by Hand Law. We'll talk about that as well. So we got a lot of things we can talk about. We can be general. And we did a little bit of that also with when Robbie was in here and Steve was in here the other day, and that show was just on Friday. And I think it actually turned out to be pretty good. Evan's a magician with cutting things up and moving things around and trying to figure out how to do things. But, you know, so we'll see what happens with, you know, going forward with a lot of things. Because as we start this week, and I'm saying this as if this was a Monday show, because it is a Monday show, we're the Wimbledon finals, we're getting into the NBA finals, we're getting into, and we're not far from the British Open. I'm trying to do the math on this because it's hard, but I think it's 2 weeks to the British Open, the last major for this season, which, you know, I get into majors, although it is kind of funny how I've changed my perspective on major golf tournaments. Mondays don't do much for me. Now, the Masters, they do. I like the Masters on Monday because I love to watch the golf course. The golf course is the champion there. The golf course has a green jacket, basically. It wears it all the time. It's just you don't see it. But so but the other ones, like, I was all fired up for the U.S. Open. They do all those previews, and then I started, and I was like, I think I'm gonna go play golf, or something like that. I've gotten to the point where I want to watch Moving Day. I want to watch the finals, but British Open will be really interesting because it's on a course that I can play on that little WCT on your phone. Yeah, I got it right here. Royal St. George's. I've played that course many times. Not played well there either. Not played well very many places lately. So anyway, we are getting excited. Football season's coming up, and we're going to be doing a lot of things football-wise going forward. Obviously, now that we're into July, and we're hoping that obviously we'll be into August pretty soon, and that into SEC Media Days coming up. So we're going to really do a lot of football-oriented things. We did a lot with the schedule over the last couple of weeks with the SEC schedule. We'll talk about some of the other games that are going to be a big factor. There's a lot of games that are. In fact, I heard something on I think it was Mark Packer's show where he was doing a thing where he wanted everybody to say, what is the under the radar game for this season? Well, first of all, everything's under the radar because it's July. It is a long time until we have college football, but the games they came up with were pretty good. I did not realize that Ole Miss is playing Liberty. I didn't really even think about that. That could be an interesting game. Although, I think I would not want to be a lower school. I don't know what's the word. What do we call them? FCS? They're not FCS. They're a group of 5 school and go play Lane Kiffin because he's going to outfox you. He's going to outthink you. He's going to outdo everything to you. That's just the way he is. Pretty smart guy. So I wouldn't want to. We saw that last year, not only in other games, but in the game Florida played against Ole Miss, where they had no trouble scoring. And I think that we kind of took that, thinking back on that game and that whole season, we took that game and kind of went, boy, Lane Kiffin's really good. He can really get people open. He can score a lot of points. They're going to be kind of a dangerous team this year. We weren't thinking, man, Florida's defense stinks. They're terrible. They can't stop anybody. Later, like the next week, we found out that was the case, that it just was not a good defense. And this goes back, it was something interesting that Steve Mercadante said on Friday's show about why his theory about why some teams struggle with baseball. And he was pointing out that, NC State was 1-8 in the ACC to start out. Virginia lost their first 5 series. And we saw this same kind of thing in football. And this is why almost you still win championships. You still crown Alabama the champion. You still crown Baylor the basketball champion. You crown anybody who's won anything and any sport, they're still legitimate champions. It doesn't take away. Got a little dicey with that NC State situation, but they're still the champions. So, but my point is, this was a weird year, and everything about it, people either adapted or they didn't adapt. The players either adapted or they didn't adapt. So we saw it in football, I think, more than any sport, where you had football players not hitting all year, not hitting in the summer, not hitting during the season because they were afraid of losing players because of this COVID possibility of losing players. So if you add that into injuries, now you're really shorthanded. So nobody wanted to get into that. So I think if they had it to do over again, I'd be curious to ask, like Todd Grantham and even Dan Mullen, when we get a chance to talk to them, if they, looking back on it, wish they had done it a little differently in terms of the hitting and the tackling, because it was clear that offenses had free reign. They could do whatever they want because guys weren't used to hitting. They weren't used to reacting Like you can throw, I think Nick Saban had the great quote on it. You can throw against air, but you can't tackle against air. It doesn't do you any good. And I think that's one reason the offense was so great. And my question now, is this still kind of a trend that maybe we're getting into, where because we've seen it in the NFL, offenses are ruling. This is why the Aaron Rodgers thing was such a big deal, or has been such a big deal. It's why every quarterback signing, it comes up, and every receiver, and when Julio Jones goes somewhere, it's because offenses are, you've got to have a quarterback, and offenses are ruling. You used to be able to win without a quarterback in the NFL. Trent Dilfer comes to mind. And you used to be able to win without a great quarterback in college. There were ways you could find ways to win if you had a great defense. Not anymore. You've got to have a great quarterback and a great offense. And you hope your defense can hold off. Now, not like last year. Last year was historically bad defensively, and we saw that here at Florida. It was really bad. I set records for yards and first downs and I think just about everything. All right, so we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll hope Bruce Feldman is going to join us. If not, we'll go right into our stuff, our fun stuff that we always like to have, and we got a couple more that we're going to get ready to start sometime in July. I'm looking forward to that. If you are interested in being part of any of them, I've got 2 new things that I'm going to throw out there at some point. I'm just waiting to get the right sponsorship on, and we're close with some people. So I know you keep hearing that we're close, but we're close. I'm trying to get them to come on, and we'll have a lot of fun with it. All right, we'll take a break right now. Then we'll come back with more of another Duly Noted podcast.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
If you've been injured in a trucking or motorcycle accident, you need the Shakow and Mercadante Law Firm. More than 100 years of combined legal experience, millions in settlements and verdicts. Call Shakow and Mercadante, 371-3000.
This is Pat Dooley, and I want to tell you about my friends at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. I'm a member, and you should be too. It's the oldest Gator booster club in the world and a great place to meet new friends, network with prominent business people, and hear a great collection of speakers, including Dan Mullen, throughout the football season. Go ahead and give John Stevens a call at 352-222-8516 or sign up on the website, quarterbackclub.org. Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube, or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from another Duly Noted podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it. All right, welcome back to another Duly Noted podcast. It's my great pleasure to bring on Bruce Feldman. You know him from Fox Sports. You see him on TV all the time, and of course writes for The Athletic and has written a bunch of books. I mean, the newest one, Flip the Script. I have not gotten that one yet. I've got to go get that one. That'll be perfect for my vacation this week. So tell us a little bit about Flip the Script.
Hey, thanks for having me, Pat. So it was a book that I really started working on 2 years ago. And I had gone down to Baton Rouge in the spring because I had heard Ed Orgeron really raving about Joe Brady, who was the new offensive mind he had brought in. He was kind of an anonymous guy, had been really just a staffer, not a position coach with the Saints. And my time down there, I spent about a week down there in the spring, and just looked, and you got to feel that this thing was about to just take off. Joe Burrow was going to be his second year in the system, and I came away thinking, I didn't think they were going to win a national title, but I thought they had a real chance to be a playoff team and have kind of a breakthrough year. And so as the year went on, I kind of kept tabs on it, and kind of once they played the Alabama game and beat the Crimson Tide, I was like, all right, I'm going to go further into this, because I knew Orgeron's story. You have a guy who is a recovering alcoholic who's battled substance abuse. He's been sober for about 20 years, but a lot of times coaches are very stubborn. They're usually their own worst enemy when it comes to some of their initial instincts. And he's had to constantly reevaluate, and every team is different, and every personality of every locker room is different. And I just thought it was a fascinating study to really get into about the growth coaches can make, and really about the guy who failed spectacularly in his first time as a head coach at Ole Miss, 15 years earlier, goes on to lead LSU to arguably the greatest season any team has had. I mean, they dominated so many good teams, beat so many top teams, and then, I saw them just hammer Georgia in the SEC title game in Georgia.
You know Ed Orgeron. You did Meat Market with him, and which is a fascinating book. And it's such a weird deal that they win the national championship, and the next year they're one thrown shoe away from being, 3-6 at that point. And I don't. And now he's got the Title IX thing going against him, where he's going to be a defendant in that. I mean, what's your take on where he is?
I think last year was obviously chaotic for all sorts of reasons beyond just college football. But I think everything that kind of could have gone wrong basically did, right? You lose pretty much every key player in the program. You knew you were going to lose, a bunch of first-round picks, but then I think you lost, arguably the best, definitely the best receiver in college football before the season. And Jamar Chase, he opts out, then you lose other key pieces. And I just think it was one of those where he's made some really good hires. He's also made some really questionable and bad hires. And I thought Bo Pelini was a really bad hire for him, replacing Dave Aranda. So I think it's really that, as much as that. I expected them to take a step back, considering they lost almost every key guy from their starting 22 going into the year. But, then again, I honestly did not expect them to beat that Florida team in the swamp, starting a true freshman quarterback. So it was weird. I mean, they were horrible in the beginning of the year, and then I was surprised that they beat Florida in the swamp, as a top 10 team, and then finished out the year, Keyshawn Butte turned out to be a really good freshman. So it's like, I think there was just a lot of drama around the program last year. And it was something where it felt a lot, honestly, like his first full season on the job after he was named the head coach in 2017, where they lose at home to Troy. Neil Brown's a really good coach, but I don't think anybody expected Troy to go in there and beat them. They had some really bad games, and then they kind of turned around at the end of the year to finish with a little bit of optimism. I don't know what, it's hard to get a read on them to see. They have a lot of guys back. for 2021, but 2 new coordinators. Is this a team that goes back to being a top 10 team, or are they somewhere in the middle? I definitely don't think, people have made the comparison, this is, Auburn winning a national title under Gene Chizik. I mean, if you look at what he's done, it's not been just a one-year wonder. There was a couple of years building to that, and he's beaten a lot of really good coaches. A lot of people think Kirby Smart's one of the top 5 coaches. The last 2 times LSU's played them, they've whipped them.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like the one national title year. So I think it's going to be really fascinating to see what LSU looks like, because they've had 2 years that couldn't have been more opposite, the 2019 year and then the 2020 season.
Yeah, Bruce, also a lot about the Pac-12 and what's been going on there, and they've obviously changed commissioners, and I don't know how you felt about Larry Scott, but it didn't seem like it was working out very well. It feels like they should be happy with this 12-team playoff, but we also know that it's probably not going to happen for a while. It's probably going to be 2015.
Say that again, Pat.
It's probably going to be 2015 before they get. So they're going to have to find a way to play their way into the playoffs in the next 3-4 years. No
doubt. Look, I think they needed fresh ideas and a fresh perspective. To me, Larry Scott, one of the biggest hurdles with him is he didn't know what he didn't know, and I felt like it was never keeping the main thing, and that was a real issue. Now, I've heard really, some encouraging things about the new commissioner, George Kliavkov, but I think we'll see. Larry Scott, in the beginning of his tenure, did some things that seemed like they were very wise, and some of those things were wise. But at the end of the day, I think what hurt the Pac-12 as much as anything was the flagship school of that league, USC, which was the powerhouse, like the preeminent powerhouse in college football when Pete Carroll was there. They really backslid and kind of fell off the radar. Some of it was related to the NCAA sanctions, and then they just had some hires that did not work out. And I think if you were to take, if USC was still USC as it was in the early 2000s, I don't think people look at the Pac-12 the same way as they do now.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we let you go, Bruce, and we appreciate your time, we don't have Cinderellas in this sport, where teams come out of nowhere to win national titles. Even with LSU 2 years ago, we knew they had a really good team. But is there anybody that you think can break into that big 4 that I think everybody's going to pick one of these or 4 of these 5 teams, Alabama, obviously Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, who's supposed to be really good this year with Spencer Rattler and a better defense, and then Georgia. Is there anybody you like that you could see sneaking in that playoff scenario?
I'm curious to see what we have from Iowa State. Matt Campbell's, to me, one of the best coaches in the country. He's done a phenomenal job with that program. They have an experienced, talented quarterback in Brock Purdy. They have arguably the best running back in the country in Breece Hall. 2 really good tight ends, like Charlie Kolar's like an All-American caliber tight end. They have some speed on defense. They've won a bunch of big games. Now the question is, can they avoid a hiccup game? As you said, Oklahoma should be really good again on offense. I think they're better on defense than they've been. I think Oklahoma is a legit playoff contender, but I think Iowa State is too. And to me, I agree with you. College football is not set up to have Cinderellas, but the fact that Iowa State, coming off its best season ever last year, finished number 9. Iowa State has never been like this. And they have a good quarterback, a big-time running back. They have some weapons, and they play hard. I don't think you can underestimate that. I've seen them battle from that. I've been on the field in Oklahoma 2 years ago. They were down 21-0 at halftime. They had a couple of dropped interceptions that could have changed the game in the first half. And they almost won that game. I think the resiliency, the character of that team, I think that will go a long way. I would keep an eye on the Cyclones this year. I think they can be really, really good.
Bruce, it's always a pleasure. You've written all these books. You've written them on Miami. You've written them on Ole Miss. You've written them on LSU. I want you to write a Florida book, because then I can find out what I don't know about the Gators.
You guys got that, Mark. You and my buddy Andy Staples. I feel like you've already got that part nailed down. So, but very interested to see the Gators. Life after Kyle Pitts. I'm sure they'll be good on offense, because they always are under Mullen. But very interested to see what the next act is, just because I think a lot of people are just assuming, hey, this is going to be George's year, and we'll see how that goes. Obviously 2020 was just such a bizarre year for everything, especially, college football and trying to get things together. We'll see if this is, we'll see what George has got. If, a lot of people are excited about JT Daniels, we'll see if it's the real deal or not.
Yep, absolutely. Bruce, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your time, buddy.
All right. Thank you, Pat. Take care.
All right. We'll see you. Bruce Feldman from Fox Sports and from, of course, The Athletic, and he writes a lot of books. He writes more books than I have. I've only written 3 books. All of them are about the Gators. He ventures out, Miami, Ole Miss, LSU. All right, we'll take a break right now, and I know we're taking more breaks than normal, but that's what happens when you're kind of going by the seat of your pants on a tape show. But we will be back when we do return. We'll be joined by Chris Harry. We'll find out what he thinks of the new players that Florida's brought in. Of course, it's going to be kind of a new team. So we'll talk some Gator basketball with him. And then we will get to 3 things presented by Hand Law, the Adams Ribco to Go Mount Rushmore, Leonardo's and Millhopper Quick Picks, and this, that, and the other. All that coming up on another Dooley Noted podcast.
Car accidents, trucking accidents, motorcycle accidents, and wrongful death. If injured or killed by the negligence of others, who will fight for the compensation you deserve? Shakow and Mercadante, 5 lawyers, more than 100 years of combined legal experience, millions in settlements and verdicts. Call Shakow and Mercadante, 371-3000. Rebuilding lives.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
This is Pat Dooley, and I want to tell you about my friends at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. I'm a member, and you should be too. It's the oldest Gator booster club in the world and a great place to meet new friends, network with prominent business people, and hear a great collection of speakers, including Dan Mullen, throughout the football season. Go ahead and give John Stevens a call at 352-222-8516 or sign up on the website, quarterbackclub.org. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from another Dooley Noted podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam's Ribco to Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Ribco to Go. Come on down and enjoy it. All right, and welcome back to another Duly Noted podcast. We appreciate everybody for clicking on. We'll get to all of our fun little things that we always do here a little bit. But right now, we're going to bring in another guest, a good friend of mine, the great Chris Harry, of course, the senior writer for FloridaGators.com. Does a lot with basketball and other sports, but really knows basketball. He's the guy you go to when you want to figure out what's going on with hoops. Hoops, there it is. So they're on campus. That's a good thing.
Yes.
They still don't know what their team might be looking like because of Colin Castleton. Now, again, we're taping this, and I'm full disclosure guy. We're taping this on a Wednesday. We're not showing until Monday. In between, he can make an announcement. So if he does, then nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, my guess is, Pat, that's likely. In speaking with him last week, I thought he told me he told me he thought he would be making his decision by July 4th. So when this rolls around, by the time, people may know either Colin Castleton is returning to his place in the middle for the Gators, or he's going to pursue a professional situation. If you look at his situation, I mean, he wasn't invited to the NBA Combine in Chicago. He wasn't invited to the G League Combine. So, like we used to say, covering the pros, Pat, it only takes one team. That's and right. Whoever is advising him is probably telling him the same thing. But at the same time, he's been told by by the NBA evaluators that you deal with during this underclassmen process that he needs to improve on some things. Number one is strength, which probably isn't a surprise to anybody. Although I thought he was pretty good last year. I thought he got stronger last year, especially given the restraints of the COVID situation. I mean, if you look at what he did last year in terms of going to basically for lack of a better, a mop-up player at Michigan. Okay. He became a second-team all-conference player. He went from averaging 3 points a game and maybe 2 rebounds a game to averaging over 13 points a game and almost 6 rebounds or almost 7 rebounds a game. I go back to what I was talking about. He needs to improve on his strength. He needs to improve on his footwork in terms of being able to switch and defend various positions at the next level. The way Florida plays defense isn't necessarily conducive to that because they don't always switch that 5 position defensively. And they want to see him shoot more. And that's probably to Gator fans, they're like, oh, geez, that means probably taking 3-pointers. He took 1 last year. He missed it. But the next level wants to see bigs that can take their bigger defender out on the perimeter and get him away from the basket, thus open stuff and hit some shots. So he's been shooting a lot of threes during this time. If you're asking, if I think you will eventually say, what's he going to do? I think he's going to come back, but he gave me no 100% indication one way or the other. Obviously, we'll know between now and maybe the next time you have me on this podcast 3 months from now or what have you. But the Gators could obviously lose him because if they don't get Colin Castleton back, their only big on the roster right now is Jason Totobo. And in terms of rallying to just pluck somebody out of thin air and bring him on as a late addition, I don't know how conducive that would be. They would have to probably play some very small lineups if that were the case. Because Jason Totobo, I don't know that he's ready to play a 20-minute role for the Florida Gators this season.
Let's talk about the players that are here, that got here this week and are working out with the team. I know that Mike talked a lot about trying to get better defensively and better rebounding, guys who are going to hit the boards. But my question will be kind of where is the scoring going to come from? And last year they didn't have any troubles with that.
Yeah. You say the guys that got there this week, the 4 transfers actually got here almost 3 weeks ago. So they had 2 weeks of practicing together, the 4 guys. And also that includes 2 new assistant coaches, Eric Pastrana by way of Oklahoma State and Hakeem Mistine by way of Florida Atlantic. I've gotten to deal with them a little bit. It's just there is a different vibe. And sometimes change is good. And I'm certainly not saying anything to dismissive of Darius Nichols now at Radford and Jordan Mincy now at Jacksonville. I love those guys. Dealing with them, they were fantastic. But they got their opportunities and good for them. These guys are here now, and hopefully, or they came here with the idea that maybe they can get opportunities down the line. But you're talking about the 4 transfers, where the scoring's going to come from. Well, 2 of them or actually 3 of them are guys that I stand at that obviously can score because they've done it in the past. Mm-hmm. The one person that has jumped out to me in terms of what I've seen in the workouts and what when I watch coaches' reactions during these drills. And again, right now they're just doing drills and they're doing some basic kind of install in terms of offense and defense, basic kind of stuff. They're not getting down in the weeds in terms of what they'll try to do down the line. But Myron Jones from Penn State is obvious. The guy averaged 14 points a game in the Big Ten. He's a perimeter shooter. He's not particularly big. I say 6'3", but he's catch and shoot going to his left, catch and shoot going to his right. I like him a lot. I like Brandon McKissick. The coaches really like Brandon McKissick. He's the one from Missouri, Kansas City. He was Defensive Player of the Year there, first-team all-conference player. Average, I believe, 17 points a game. You're asking where the scoring's come from. There's some scoring. And then there's Flan Fleming, who comes from Charleston Southern. He was Defensive Player of the Year and a two-time first-team all-conference player there in the Southern Conference. He averaged 20 points a game. He also averaged better than 7 rebounds a game. This is a guy who's about 6'5". He's bouncy. He chases balls. He's aggressive. So you're talking about where's the scoring come from? I just gave you 3 guys, but I also like what these guys are going to bring defensively in terms of a mentality on that end of the floor. They've proven they could do it. Granted, you can say they did it in mid-major. You can even make the case they did it in low major leagues. But having said that, McKissick played against Oral Roberts, okay? And we all remember what Oral Roberts was able to do with Florida. Last year, his team at Missouri, Kansas City split 2 games with Oral Roberts, and he was guarding the guard that killed the Gators. What was his name, by the way? I'm brain locking. It's part of the whole thing that you and I are dealing with right now in terms of premature dementia. So we'll move on from them. But these,
I can see the guy.
Those, yes, of course you can. Of course you can. He got Albus. And he guy got wherever he wanted and scored and could drive to the basket and what have you. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention C.J. Fleming. Is the Boston College, is the other transfer from Boston College. He was second in the league last year in the Atlantic Coast Conference in block shots. Again, a proven commodity and out on the floor. I don't think he's a great scorer, but he probably will be a little underrated scorer. And he's a guy who's going to come here and try to work on his shot and try to play along the lines of what we would have seen from maybe Keontae Johnson in terms of a 3/4 that can step away from the basket and maybe make a 3 every now and then and try to beat his guy off the dribble.
Now, I've talked all the time about you either embrace this transfer portal or you kind of get run over by it. And Florida's obviously embraced it. They're kind of the opposite of Kentucky, although Kentucky now is taking players from there. But every year Kentucky fans have to get used to a brand new team. And it feels like Florida's going to probably have to do a lot of that as well, their fans.
Well, I mean, you embrace it or you get, like you said, get run over by. I mean, you have no choice. And it's comical to the point now when you think about back in April when Quez Glover transferred or when Osai Osifo transferred and people were making references to these mass exodus at the Florida program and what's going on there. And I mean, last week LSU had 2 more players transfer. Josh LeBlanc and Seneca Knight both announced they were transferring. So let's go down the list, Pat, in terms of embrace it or get run over by it. Georgia and Texas A&M lead the SEC with 9 players having transferred this year. Right behind them, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt with 8. LSU is now at 7 alongside Missouri. It's funny because Xavier Pinson, who killed Florida when he was here, he transferred to LSU. So there's also this incestuous thing going on within the league where players are leaving within the league. Arkansas, I mean, if Arkansas has lost 6 players, they should be fine with that because that's all that guy does. And he gets a really good freshman player and adds like 5 transfers. Musselman, that's what he did at Nevada. That's what he's doing at Arkansas. Ole Miss has 5. Auburn, Florida, and Tennessee are tied for second last in the league with 4 outgoing transfer players. To your point, Kentucky lost 2. Alabama lost 2 also, but those guys also lost normal. Kentucky lost guys to the NBA. Alabama lost seniors. They were a team loaded with seniors, and that's one of the reasons that they were so good so good last season because they were old and experienced. So Florida 2 years ago, believe it or not, and people were surprised by this. That year, Kerry Blackshear was here as the lone senior on the team, grad transfer rather. And Scotty Lewis's freshman year, Trey Mann's freshman year, and those other guys, the three sophomores that year, Andrew, Keontae, and Noah. That was the youngest team in the SEC by experience, according to KenPom.com, and I think the 9th youngest team in the country. Now you're bringing in, with these 4 guys, you got a chance to be one of the oldest teams in the SEC, if not one of the oldest teams in the country, because these guys got stripes on their shoulders, man. A couple of them have started 100 games, played 100 games, started 50 some games. So big difference in terms of experience, big difference. Now, granted, they haven't had a whole lot of success. And this is something you and I have talked about, certainly off camera. I mean, now that they're here, all right, what are you doing? Because you just left a place where you were playing 30, 35 minutes a game. You're not going to do that here, probably. Okay, so are you here to win? Or are you here for your own, to see what I can do in the SEC and do as best as I can do? Because now comes the culture molding. It has to be about what's best for the program for these guys. Mm-hmm. And all these guys obviously transferred to better their own situation for whatever reason, play at a higher level, test myself against better players, that kind of thing. It all has to be done within the confines of what's best for the Florida program and winning. And that's up to the coaches to mold that kind of mentality. And it's up to the players to have to embrace it. Otherwise, you have culture issues. And frankly, and Mike White will tell you this, they've had some culture issues the last couple of years.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Some guys didn't want to be coached. I'm not mentioning names, but and one guy that we won't know about probably for a little while for sure is Keontae Johnson. And I mean, that decision hasn't been made, and I don't think it's a slam dunk either way. We'll just wait and see what happens with him. I personally kind of don't want to see him play, even though I want to see him play. You know what I mean? Like, I'm scared of what could happen, but I'd love to see him play again because he was such a great player.
You're scared of what happened. Imagine what his family would think if he stepped on the court again. So again, this is a very private thing. The family has kept this very close to the vest. They've kept his condition and all of his medical information very private. He has done everything that he's been told to do as far as the tests and what have you. And I believe the next big threshold test is coming up within the next 10 days to 2 weeks. And that'll be one that'll determine where he stands. And then a decision is coming down the line. I mean, if you ask me right now, I think Keontae Johnson's spot on that. He'll be here this year. I don't know if he'll be in uniform. I don't know that. I don't know that he won't be in uniform, but I think there's a chance that if he can't play, he'll be around in the same capacity he was last year, and he'll be on scholarship. His scholarship may not count if he decides that he's done playing basketball. That means Florida will have an extra scholarship to roll over to maybe offer to somebody next season. I don't think that's something they would go out and fill right away just out of necessity. But again, that's something that we'll be talking about probably the next time you have me on the show more definitively.
Let me ask you about Mike and obviously what he's been through with COVID, with the Keontae situation, with the criticism that has come. I mean, when you watch him in practice, do you see anything different, or is he just going full bore into the job doing the same things he's been doing before? Obviously also getting an extension. Yeah,
I think you mentioned COVID. They went through COVID. Everybody went through COVID. So, and everybody reacted to it in a different way. But Keontae Johnson was something not everybody went through. And when you think about it, and I made this point last year when right in the aftermath of Keontae's collapse, they shut the program down. And they were wondering where they're going to, how much they really wanted to play. And they knocked off 4 what you call bye games, all home games that, maybe could have helped this team convalesce a little bit better and come together a little more, and certainly would have made the record better because they were winnable basketball games being played at home. So that impacted the record. The criticism is what it is. I mean, it's not going to stop. I like to think it's a vocal minority. It's the same people bitching about the same thing. Low info comments about early exits of the NCAA tournament, the likes of which you saw 5 years in a row with Billy Donovan. They would have fired him back then too. So, and I'm not comparing Mike White to Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan is who Billy Donovan is, one of the greatest coaches in college basketball history. But this is a program, the only one in the SEC that has gone to the last 4 NCAA tournaments. I think 2 years ago they would have won 20 games. Mike White could have been the third coach in SEC history to win 20 games his first 5 years in the league, 6 years in the league, whatever the number of the league was at the time. But he got his contract extension this offseason. He's going to be the coach here for a while longer. So people need to get used to that. Is he acting any different? I don't know. I haven't seen that because it's only been, these 45-minute practices, hour and a half practices right now. We'll see a little bit more down the line, but I don't think he's feeling this intense pressure. I think Scott Strickland took that. If there was any pressure, Scott Strickland took that off the plate with this extension. I think he likes this team right now. I think he would like some more answers in terms of what this team will definitively look like, which we'll have in a week or so. Yep,
absolutely. Chris, always great talking to you. Appreciate you coming out with me on my anniversary.
That was fun. Yes.
And we'll get you again soon, and appreciate you taking time to come on.
All right, Pat. Take care, man. Have a good summer. See you.
Chris Harry, yes, you have a good summer too. Chris Harry, senior writer from, of course, FloridaGators.com. We're going to keep going. We don't need to take a break, so let's just keep going because we want to get our things in, things that we do, the things we do for love. Who sang that song? Golly, wasn't 10cc. Oh, I got to think about that. Things we do for love. All right. It is 10cc. Wow. That's pretty good. All right. So let us start with, and again, thanks to Bruce Feldman for coming on Fox Sports and The Athletic, and Chris Harry for coming on. Let's do 3 things. 3 things is presented by Hand Law, Florida law firm, which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by visiting its website, www.hand.law. The firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville. We appreciate the great people at Hand Law. I'm going all Gators, and again, these are kind of general stuff that I want to talk about, but they're kind of appropriate in terms of timing. Number 1 on 3 things. Gator fans, I think you ought to let it go with Georgia. Okay, now, whoa, everybody's backing up saying, what do you mean? All the Gator fans on Twitter just want to keep making fun of the fact that Georgia hasn't won a national championship since 1980. Counting down the days and all these different things. And I'm like, don't poke the bear. They're going to have a really good team this year. And you know what? They're going to celebrate it if they win it. I don't think they will. But if they win the national championship, it's going to be painful for you. So don't let that happen, okay? Don't just let them go about their business and not win another national championship. That'll be fine. So I just think Gator fans, I know that it's part of being in a rivalry. I get all that. But everybody needs to kind of just back off that. That's my advice. I'm not saying you're being dumb for doing it. You're not being idiots. Just back off of it. That's all I'm saying. Number 2, we talked about Ed Orgeron, and I was trying to think about SEC Media Days coming up, is who would be on the hot seat? Who would people talk about being a hot seat coach? And really, nobody other than maybe him. Now, I don't know how much of a hot seat he's on. A lot may depend on that trial, on his testimony that he has to give in the Title IX thing. They basically got rid of a lot of people, but he's still there. I don't think it's going to be football related if they get rid of him. And to be honest with you, I don't think they're going to get rid of him. They still have Will Wade as their basketball coach. They have no ethics or morals there. Okay? So that's not going to happen probably. But that would be the closest thing you could get to a hot seat. So it's very possible. And that's the only reason I even bring that Ed Orgeron up, is because he is probably the closest thing to a hot seat we have because of all the off-the-field stuff. But when you think about it, the SEC replaced 4 coaches last year. So you don't have Malzahn to automatically put on the hot seat. You don't have Derek Mason and all his losses to put on the hot seat. Derek Mason, a great guy. It just kind of changed things. I mean, certainly Mike Leach isn't on the hot seat. He just had a year. We had a lot of first-year coaches, and now we're going to have a bunch more first-year coaches. So if you add them all together, so if you go Pittman, Leach, Kiffin, and then the 4 new coaches, there's 7. That's half the league that has only been coaching for a year. I maybe even missing something. Drinkwitz, and he's certainly not on a hot seat. Let me guess. Saban's not on the hot seat. Dan Mullen just got a contract extension. So it's kind of a non-hot seat league, which, things change though. And you remember when Gene Chizik won a national championship and 2 years later got fired. So things do change. But I don't think there'll be much going on the hot seat. All right, so number 3 on 3 things presented by Hand Law. Very happy to see that the Gainesville Sun on Friday ran a story, and they have published the All Sports Trophy. Was not good for Florida. Florida did not win it. They did win the men's, I believe. But Arkansas was your winner in it. And when you think about it, wow, of course Arkansas won it. They won softball. Florida shared it with them. But they won softball. They got all the points for softball. They got all the points for baseball. They got all these points for track, which they always do. They had a really good basketball program. Football didn't kill them the way sometimes they have. And you just keep adding in the sports. So Arkansas was your winner of the All Sports Trophy, the first time they've ever won it. I think the only other people that won it, Florida, Texas A&M was 2 years ago, and Georgia a while back. So, look, it's a big thing to me. It's a big deal to me, and I pushed for the Gainesville Sun to do it. I think there was some question about whether to keep it going. It's something I did every year. In terms of writing the stories and everything and getting the information out. But congratulations to the Gainesville Sun for doing that, to Arnold Feliciano for pushing that through, because it needs to happen. We need to keep track. It's important, I think. Hopefully other people do think that as well. It goes under the USA Today All Sports SEC Championship. So well done there. So they'll present that somewhere in Arkansas. Not my problem this year. Used to be my problem. In fact, the year that Texas A&M won it 2 years ago, we had this great trophy, and I had to ship it out there. I think it was $200 to ship it out there. Didn't come out of my pocket. All right, so that's 3 things presented by Hand Law here on the Shackell and Mercandante Luxury Studios. We'll keep going. Let's just keep going. Let's go right through it. Get out of here for today. Okay. Next up, the Adams Ribco to go. Mount Rushmore today is going to be Saka, and I think these ones are pretty obvious. Look, Abby Wambach, okay, obviously. Daniel Fotopoulos, scored the winning goal in the national championship game. Also won, I think she's Florida's all-time leading scorer. Becky Burley, I mean, she's been the only coach until the new coach came on. Nobody's ever won a game at Florida other than Becky Burley. 13 SEC titles, though. Think about that. Plus, of course, the national championship as well. 22 NCAA appearances. There's no question. She's probably the most qualified of all the coaches that I put on the Mount Rushmores. And so, again, it always comes down to the fourth one. There were a lot of people considered, but I'm going with Heather Mitts. Heather Mitts won 2 gold medals. She was a great player at Florida. And she dated Brad Wilkerson. That right there qualifies her, because Brad Wilkerson is the best baseball player. And I remember when I was interviewing her after they won the national championship, and I'm like, Brad's going to be envious, man, because you're getting a ring and he still doesn't have one. He never did get one for baseball. So that is our Adams Ribco to go Mount Rushmore here in the Shackell and Mercandante Studios. today was soccer. Friday, when we do our next show, it'll be women's tennis. And boy, I think you know one of them pretty easily. And then it's going to be tough, really tough to narrow it down to 4 people to go up on that monument. All right, next up, the Leonardo's at Millhopper Quick Picks. Because we're taping this show early, here's what I'm going to do on this. We're going to put, we had our winner, George Luttrell won the last one we did, and I asked you guys to send me what guy we missed, and I'm going to put that up. When Robbie and I did our draft the other day, I'm going to put that up online, and I'm also going to put the question. I'll put it up on. I guess I'll put it up on. Yeah, Monday. As soon as we get done, the show airs, I'll give you the question. But I don't want to do it now because it's Wednesday. By Monday, I don't know what's going to be happening. Teams could win their playoff series. They could be this. They could be that. So we're going to wait till Monday. We'll put it up online. And again, I know Kyle understands this. Kyle does such a great job over there at Leonardo's at Millhopper, and we love the quick picks. So we'll post it online Monday. We'll also make sure that on Friday I get up the other one that we just talked about. I'm trying to simplify things. I think I'm just making it more complicated, but we'll keep going. George Luttrell, I'm going to try to put your stuff together tomorrow. I've got most of it ready to go and ship it out to you. I got his address. He was the winner of the last one, lives in South Carolina. So that is great. We've had winners from all over the country, and I don't mind shipping it out. It's just paper, That's Robbie's saying about money. It's only paper. I go, yeah, well, kind of like to have some. All right. Now, let's go here in the Shackau and Mercadante Luxury Studios. What do we have left? We have this, that, and the other, right? Which we always do on Mondays now. So we will do that. I think it's kind of a fun one. It's presented by Ballyhoo Grill, Ironwood, and Dar Shackau Insurance. And those are great sponsors who've done a great job. So number one, this. No, it's not number one. It's this. Number one is Han Law's 3 things. I'm getting a little discombobulated here. This, that, and the other. This. A lot of people making a lot of noise about how we needed more for the student athletes. We needed all these different things to happen. People complaining they wanted a playoff. People complaining they wanted people to be able to transfer. People complaining that student athletes needed more of a part of the piece of the pie. And most of those things, in fact, all of them, I think I agree with. So we all had that. That everybody wanted to change the face of college football, which is fine. And I think all the things they're doing now that NIL's out there and enacted in the state of Florida, were good. So that is that, yes, in about a stretch of 11 days, we did this, we did that. We had a new playoff system. We had NIL stuff coming in. We had you can transfer within your conference in the SEC now. All that happened. The other is I'm curious about SEC Media Days. Are there going to be any questions about football? Because the media boys and girls are going to be out there and they're going to be assigned stories. And their stories are going to be, hey, talk to a bunch of guys about whether they have NIL deals now. Or it could be guys even advertising when they're up at a podium trying to get NIL deals. Or maybe like I'm just throwing Emory Jones's name out there because I would assume he's going to be there. Emory Jones walks up there and puts a can of Pepsi on the podium because he's got a deal with Pepsi. You got that, and then all the other questions are going to be, what do you think about this playoff system? What if you had to play 17 games? All that stuff is going to be going on. The transfer portal. Let's talk about that. This guy came from the transfer portal. I don't think anybody's going to talk about football. I don't think there'll be any questions about it. What kind of team do you think you're going to have this year? And do you have an NIL deal? So that's what you're going to get at SEC Media Days. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's the other. All right, that is going to do it for our show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think we got through this week of trying to tape some shows so you can have a great 4th of July, and also so that Evan could have a great 4th of July, which is important to me because he's doing such a great job here. What are we at, 55 shows now today? 56 maybe, something like that. And that I can have a great 4th of July. So we'll be back with a show on Friday of next week. And we'll have a couple of great guests. I promise you. I'm going to really. I had a lot of people. In fact, I was going to get Billy on, but Billy is in the middle of pre-draft camps and stuff like that. So we will just try to get to some really good guests. That'll be Friday, July 9th. Would be the next show that you will see. And then we hope you guys enjoyed these last couple of shows, and we think we did the best we could to tape them and get them up for you, and so you can have fun. Until next time, from the Shackow and Mercandante, God, I knew this guy for 40 years, and I spelled saying his name right. The Shackow and Mercandante Law Firm, Luxury Studios. I'm Pat Dooley saying I'm deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.